Hey friends, welcome back to the Happy Homestead. I'm Amanda, and today we are kicking off a year-long video series called the 365 Bread Challenge. And the purpose of this is to really up your bread making skills for the year of 2023. So for every month, there is a new type of bread or bread product that you really hone in on at home and learn to make yourself. And I am doing this challenge as well. And so I thought it would be fun to go along month by month and share some of the recipes that I'm doing in order to help you, and also for me just to kind of learn, because there's some things that I've never made. And so I will post a picture, hopefully it's coming up on the screen now, of the different types of breads through 2023. And January is sandwich bread. Now, we've been making our own sandwich bread for well over a year, probably almost 2 years now, and I don't miss store-bought bread. Now, if you ask my family, maybe sometimes they do. But for the most part, everyone has adapted really well. It's not that hard. It's not that labor intensive, but it does take practice. And so there are two ways that you can really make your sandwich bread. The one way is sourdough, which is really what I have all the experience in. That's just what I've been doing because I know sourdough is just really good for you, right? Because of the fermentation process within the dough. The second type is a yeast bread, and that is what I'm going to make today. So I'm trying a brand new recipe that I printed out here today. I'm not familiar. I shouldn't say it's not hard to make a yeast bread, but I'm not as familiar with it. I try not to use store-bought yeast unless it's absolutely necessary. And the reason is really just because of sustainability, right? When you have a sourdough starter, you can keep that starter going for years, decades, and not ever have to buy yeast again. But I realize that sourdough is not everybody's forte, and starting with a yeast bread can really help boost your confidence, your skills, and just your desire to keep going. So that's what we're going to do today. So the recipe I have here is called a honey whole wheat bread, and this is from Melissa K. Norris, who I absolutely adore, and I've met her a few times in person, guys, and she's just as genuine and amazing in person as she seems on camera. She really is a true wonderful soul. So I'm going to try her recipe here today. Have never tried it before. This recipe makes 2 loaves, and I've kind of gone back and forth. Do I want to make 2 loaves or just 1? But I'm going to go ahead and make 2 because she talks about being able to freeze it as well. So if we go through one quickly, great. If not, then I can put it in the freezer for another day. So we're going to be using 4.5 teaspoons of yeast, 1 1/3 cups warm water, a 1/4 cup honey, 2 cups buttermilk, and if you don't have buttermilk, you can just use regular milk. I'm actually going to be using my kefir because that's what I use in place of buttermilk in our recipes. 8 cups freshly ground wheat flour. I used hard red. She mentions hard white. If you don't have freshly ground flour, that's okay too. You can use 9.5 cups of all-purpose flour. If you would prefer to go ahead and use a whole wheat flour that's already been ground and that you purchase in the store, I'd probably go somewhere between the 8 to 9 cup mark. Probably start with 8.5 and just see how it goes and kind of play with your dough. If you need to add more liquid, you do. Otherwise, you add more flour. But I think 8.5 cups of probably store-bought ground whole wheat flour would work. And then we're going to add 1 tablespoon of sea salt. So I've got all my ingredients and my bread or my KitchenAid mixer here on the counter. Let's get this started. So the first thing we're going to do is add our water into the bowl as well as our yeast, because we really want the yeast to rehydrate and become active again. And we're doing 4.5 teaspoons. 1/4 cup of honey, which is just about all I have here. So All right, we're gonna mix this up a little bit. And we're gonna let this sit in here for anywhere from about 5 to 10 minutes. You just wanna see the water turn kind of frothy and bubbly a little bit. And kind of actually starting to see some bubbles form. That just means that the yeast is rehydrating and doing its thing. Okay, it's been about 5 to 6 minutes, but you can start to see it's a little frothy, everything is rehydrated. So we're going to add the rest of the ingredients and get our dough mixed together. There was one ingredient that I missed when I was talking earlier, and that is 6 tablespoons of melted butter. So I'm going to start with adding my 8 cups of flour. Okay, 8 cups of flour, 1 tablespoon Redmond real salt, 6 tablespoons melted butter, and 2 cups buttermilk, or in my case, kefir. Okay, so we can see that the batter is pretty much come together. We're gonna let it knead on about a number 2 or 3 for 4 minutes. Okay, been 4 minutes. We are going to leave it in here to rest for 10 to 15 minutes. After about 10 to 15 minutes of rest time, we're gonna knead it again in the mixer for about 5 minutes. And then I'll just take the bowl off the mixer. I'm gonna leave it in that bowl. I'm gonna cover it and let it rest for about an hour. And then we'll put it in our loaf pans and let it rest a little bit longer. Okay, it's been sitting for, I don't know, 13 or 14 minutes now. We're gonna knead this again for 5 more minutes. All right, our 5 minutes is up. Okay, I am going to very lightly put some olive oil in this bowl. Now, her recipe says to lightly grease a glass bowl and put your dough in it. I am just going to continue to use this bowl because I'm not a fan of making more dishes. But I am going to rub that olive oil around because the goal is to not let the dough stick to your bowl. And the dough is gonna rise. So we're gonna let it sit here covered for about an hour and it should double. It's been an hour. It's certainly doubled. It's almost to the top of the bowl here. So this is the fun part, I think. I've never done this because I've never necessarily had to do it with my sourdough, or just maybe I never did, but I'm gonna punch it down. Get some of your anger out when you're making bread. We're gonna punch this down, divide it into 2, and I'm gonna show you a trick on how to create 2 loaves that then we're gonna put in 2 pans. So I have 2 of these pans. I put some olive oil in them. I'm just gonna spread that olive oil around. You could do butter too, right? Just you want to help grease the sides of your pan so that your loaf doesn't stick to it. So we're gonna divide it into 2 and shape it into our loaves. Let me show you how I do that. All right, here we go. That was fun. All right, we're gonna cut it out of our bowl. See how easily it comes out too once you grease your bowl up a little bit. All right, so I'm just rolling this out so I can try to get it even. You could weigh your loaf here and then, you know, divide it by 2 to get really 2 equal pans or loaves of bread, but I'm just gonna eyeball it. I'm gonna spread my olive oil around. Now once we get our dough in here, we're gonna let it sit and rise again, and you want to let it rise until it doubles again. She doesn't have on the recipe how long that takes, and it's probably because it could be subjective depending upon the environment, the temperature of your kitchen. But I'm gonna check it in an hour and expect that hopefully it's risen double in an hour. So here's what I do. I kind of just spread it out into a rectangle as much as I can. Without breaking it, right? Don't poke holes into your dough. Okay, I'm happy with that. You want your rectangle to be a little bit longer than your actual loaf pan. I'm gonna roll it. I always put the seam side down and I'm going to tuck it. It doesn't have to be beautiful and perfect because it is going to double in size. And so it should really fill out the pan nicely. I'm gonna do the same thing with this one. I do this step with my sourdough loaves as well. I'm a little more gentle with that dough because of the bubbles, and I don't want to lose those beautiful sourdough bubbles. And that's that. Okay. Gonna cover those up with my towel and let them sit for about an hour. Okay guys, the bread has been sitting here for about an hour, 15, 20 minutes, and it looks great. It has doubled. I have to say, for my first time doing a yeast sandwich bread, I'm impressed. Because with sourdough, I have to let it proof overnight, and then usually a couple of extra hours even beyond that. So it's about a 2-day process to do it, which not a big deal, right? It's not hands-on for 2 days. It's very hands-off. But I was able to do this within a day. So I kind of like that, within a few hours, really. I'm going to put these in the oven. I already have the oven preheated to 420 degrees. Her directions say 420 degrees for 4 minutes, and then you're going to turn it down to 375 for about 25 minutes. Okay, our bread is almost done. It smells amazing in here. I can see now why people enjoy making a yeast bread over a sourdough loaf. I'm gonna take these out, and then she has on her recipe to take a little bit of butter and just kind of rub it over the top of the loaf. I think it just kind of adds a little bit more flavor, as well as makes the top of the loaf a little bit softer, right? And so maybe you don't have as hard of a crust. So I'm gonna do that and then just let them cool. Oh my goodness, they are gorgeous. They're so big. My sourdough loaves have never gotten that big. How beautiful are they? I'm gonna let them cool in the pan for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'll take them out and put them on a rack to fully cool. You don't want to slice any freshly baked bread until it's fully cooled. Thanks for joining me today on our very first video of the 365 bread challenge. I hope you'll consider making this. Like I said, this is the first time I tried the recipe. It's a winner. I mean, anything from Melissa really is, but I will absolutely make this again. Try it, let me know what you think, and then stay tuned and don't forget to hit subscribe as we go through. The next one, I'll be making a fermented sourdough sandwich loaf, and then we'll go through the rest of the months and make all of the different wonderful bread products. Take care, stay healthy, stay well. Bye-bye.